As the old joke goes, Francois Mitterrand and his wife once went to a gala dinner in an English-speaking country, and somebody asked the wife and said, "Mrs. Mitterrand, in life, what is it you would really want in life?" The table fell silent. Everybody was waiting for her to answer the question. They were hanging on her lips, and the next thing, she speaks up and says, as clear as a bell, "A penis." Of course, this caused stunned silence in the audience. This lasted for a couple of moments, and then Mr. Mitterrand cleared his throat and said, "My dear, I think that is pronounced happiness." Happiness, yes. I think a lot of people would agree that a main goal in life is to achieve a state of happiness. But what exactly is that? What is this happiness that we would talk about? What is this happiness that's almost enshrined as a human right? The Americans are talking about things like the pursuit of happiness. That would be everybody's right. Everybody would have the right to pursue happiness. So if you think about it that way, then it is fairly clear, I think, to me anyway, that when you're talking about that sort of happiness, when you're talking about happiness in that sense, you're talking about something that is more or less a permanent state of being. You pursue happiness with the goal of achieving a permanent state of mind that you would call happiness. And that then highlights the sort of problem that would be with a lot of people would have with what happiness actually is. Because if you ask people what is happiness, they would think, well, they would say something like, yeah, it's about being happy, and being happy includes, enjoying yourself, having, joy, bliss, euphoria, those sort of things. And of course, you can't deny that somebody who is experiencing that, is experiencing joy, bliss, and euphoria, are definitely not unhappy. But I can't agree with saying that those people have achieved happiness, because any of those states are very transient. They don't last. So pursuing happiness by seeking to put yourself in situations where you experience joy, bliss, or euphoria is, in my opinion, a bit of a wild goose chase. You don't actually achieve true happiness there. You do, of course, achieve fleeting moments of not being unhappy by doing that. The moment you're enjoying yourself, you're in this state of joy, you feel like jumping, singing, dancing, shouting, and that is a good place to be. But you haven't got the energy to keep that up for the rest of your life. So there comes a point very soon where you need to take a break from that, sit down and rest. Bliss is another one of those states where your body is suffused with this sense of well-being. But it's a passive state. It's a state in which you allow things to wash over you. And while they're great, very soon the daily business of having to lead your life interferes and interrupts the bliss. And you need to get up and go to the toilet, get your food, provide for your family. It can't last. A state of bliss can't last. Euphoria is a similar sort of state to bliss, in the sense that your sense of self dissolves in this enormous sense of well-being and feeling of connectedness with the universe, or if you're religious, God, or whatever. But again, that can't last. You can't function in that state, and soon you're coming down with a bang. So for a person to be able to state that they're happy, experiencing such states is not what is required. It is great to experience them, but it's not the main requirement for being happy. And having thought about that, I think happiness is a lot more subtle than such transient states of being. Happiness is a state in which you feel that your current state of being is the way it needs to be, or the way you want it to be. It doesn't mean contentment. I wouldn't call it that, because contentment is again, it's a very passive sort of state, where you're not interested in changing anything. And happiness doesn't necessarily have to mean that, I don't think. I mean, happiness could well be a state in which, for the future, you might think of ways of improving things, or things you want to do, or whatever. But I think a state of happiness is a state where, as you're looking at the here and now, and at the decisions you've made in the past, you realize that this is the best you can hope for, the best you could expect. You look at your decisions in the past, and you might have your regrets or your what ifs. But when you think about those, and you realize that all the what if scenarios lead to a state that is not where you want to be as compared to where you are now, then I think you can call yourself happy. I think the best way to express what I mean, or illustrate what I mean with an example, is by looking at my own example. Because I've led a very kind of random sort of life, to an extent. I have allowed my fate to take me places where somebody who would be a control freak and who wants to control everything in their life all the time would never have got to. And as a result, for example, I've migrated twice to different countries. And I've missed opportunities. For example, university, where I've got to a sort of bachelor's level of degree, and I didn't pursue up to a master's level degree. In hindsight, I could look at this and say, I've missed an opportunity there. Yes, I have. I've missed an opportunity there. But if I'd done that, I would not have started work in the company where I started work. And when I was there, I got the opportunity to go to England. And if I hadn't taken that opportunity and stayed in Holland, I might have had maybe a slightly faster career path. But on the other hand, I wouldn't have gone to England if I'd done that. And if I hadn't gone to England, I wouldn't have met my wife. And when my wife decided to go back to Ireland, I could have decided to stay in England, because I had bought a house there and I had settled down quite a bit. And I would probably financially have been in a slightly better position than I am now. But then I wouldn't have married my wife, and I wouldn't have ended up here in Ireland. And if I hadn't ended up here in Ireland, my daughter wouldn't have been born. And if I think of an alternative now in which my daughter wouldn't have been born, I just know that I couldn't have made any decision otherwise. And from that perspective, I have to insist that I am happy today. I have achieved happiness. I'm obviously going to hope that it's going to last. And I'm not going to be jumping for joy all the time. And there's going to be shitty days. And some not so good stuff is going to happen. And some good days and some bad days. But overall, I am where I want to be today. And that is what I think we should look for if we are trying to take that ride and pursue happiness.